Hello and welcome. My name is Jonas and I'm an analyst here at Erik. We're very pleased to today have the CEO of Mips here presenting. Thank you for coming, Max.
Yes. Hello everyone, my name is Max Stramwitz. I am the CEO of Mips. I will give you a short presentation what Mips is and what we do. So first of all, we are the world leader in brain protection system. We do have more than 100 customers around the world. We are organized in 3 different categories, sports helmets, motor helmets, and safety helmets. Our most penetrated category is the sports helmet category, and there we work with all the key brands. In bicycle, we have 9 out of the 10 biggest brands in the world. In snow, we have all the big brands, so a relatively strong position. If we look at our performance, we did grow in all the geographies that we were present in during last year, and we grew in all the categories that we are present in. We have quite a strong market position. At the moment, we have 583 different models equipped with Mips on the market. We have delivered in 2019 5 million units, and since inception 14.2 million units. So what do we then do? How does actually Mips work in practice? So first of all, we do something which is called a low friction layer. And what we want to do with that is to reduce the risk of brain injury. So inside the helmet, and almost all helmets that you see something like a low friction layer. It can be presented in a lot different way, but it's all have the same ambition. So just to give you an introduction to what we do, first think of inside your head, your brain is floating in water. If I do like this, your brain moves around 10 to 15 millimeters. The worst thing that can happen is that you get to a sudden stop. So think that you're riding a horse or you are bicycling and so on, you fall off the bike and you hit the ground with some kind of angle. Then your head gets stuck into the ground, normally with a helmet on, and your brain wants to rotate. That's best case, you get a concussion. Worst case, you get a severe brain damage. What we do then is that we enable a relative motion of 10 to 15 millimeters that avoid that the brain absorbs the energy. That's what we do in principle. We do that with 8 different technologies. Today we have 8 different technologies on the market, and we can address all different price points. We do have, of course, quite a lot of patents. Today we have 36 different patent families. We do try to protect the outside of the helmet. We try to protect between the hard shell and the EPS foam. And we also try to protect the inside of the helmet. And then, of course, we also have a lot of fixation members that we protect, and also other areas to tactically protect as much as possible of the helmet. If you look at our strategy and what we want to become, and that is, of course, to become the expected safety solution in helmets. And so we are sort of getting there when it comes to sports helmet. If you go into a bicycle store today, especially in the US, a lot of people, they look for a helmet with a yellow logo. Then they pick a brand that they like and the model and the color that they like. And that's what we want to achieve. When we started in 2009 as an ingredient brand, of course, we were very unexpected. And then gradually we have increased our brand awareness and the awareness of Mips. And like I said, in the sports helmet category, we have a relatively high awareness. And in the second category, which is the motorcycle category, we still have a job to do. And in the safety category, we just started to penetrate that market. If we look at the global market trends, of course, important, and this is not including any COVID-19 impact. So just in general, we are helped by consumer awareness. People start to understand that it is very important to not only protect your head, you also need to protect your brain. If you take a traditional helmet without Mips, it does give you a protection if you fall straight down. So a linear absorption, it doesn't provide as much protection for rotational motion, like I explained before, and the consumers, they start to get there. We're also helped by a lot of third-party testing. We do not publish our own test because as a market leader, we think it's wrong if we all of a sudden start publishing what we have tested at home. We have the biggest one, which is Virginia Tech, which is a big university in the US, publish a lot of helmet tests in a lot of different categories. We have consumer reports in the US, also an independent organization validating our technology. And then, of course, if you look in Sweden, you also have Länsförsäkringar and Folksam also testing the helmets, also including rotational protection. And when it comes to the new area for us, that's safety at work. Today, most big construction companies and manufacturing companies do have some kind of zero vision when it comes to injuries at the workplace. And of course, we do support that vision. So very much helped by the different global market trends that we see. We are organized in 3 different categories, like I said before. Sports helmets, that's where a majority of our business is today. And that's also where we are estimated to have a majority of our business also in 2025. Motorcycle, and very interesting category. If you divide that into 2, you first have what we call motocross helmets. There we have quite good penetration. We have all the big brands on board, very similar penetration that you see in the bicycle category, for instance. Because those riders, when they go out riding on the motocross cycle, they know that most probably they will have an accident. They're very keen on wearing protection. They do wear chest pads, they do wear knee pads, elbow pads, and they're very thorough when it comes to picking a helmet. So good penetration there. When it comes to the more traditional road bikes helmet or street motorcycle helmets, it's a little bit a different animal, much more traditional, much more difficult to penetrate. We are helped that there comes a new standard that is being voted for now in mid-June, which is called ECE 2206, and that is actually handling exactly also that you include rotational motion. So some, or a little bit also helped by the standards that is being put in place. And then we have our safety category, which is of course an enormous area to address, but you also have to remember that we have just started. If we look at when we talk about our addressable market, in total we talk about a market of 400 million helmets, so quite a lot. However, we cannot address all of them. We can address 130 million, and I give you the category-specific reasons. So first, if you start with the motorcycle category, there is a lot of helmets that is being sold around the world. We estimate it to around 50 million helmets. Out of those, we can address somewhere around 30 million helmets. The key difference is the price points. We cannot go into the cheaper helmets, and there you today have most of the scooter helmets. You see a lot of them in India, and you also see a lot of them in China. Interesting market, but we haven't considered that to be our addressable market yet. In the future, maybe, but not today. And then when it comes to the second, that's the sports helmet category. There also we see similar market, 50 million helmets estimated to be sold annually, and 30 million of those being addressable. And the reason there is also the price point. And then when it comes to the biggest market, which is the safety market, which is a little bit more than 300 million helmets in industrial use. And then we also have 10 million helmets for LEAF, which is law enforcement and armed forces, so military helmets, police helmets, and fire squad helmets. And then when you look there, we see around 70 million of those being addressable. And the reason why we only can address around 20% of helmets for industrial use is the reason that when you look at those type of helmets, most of the helmets that are being sold are the traditional yellow hard hats. They cost somewhere around $10 to $15, and there it's very difficult for Mips to actually get the financials to work. So far, we have disqualified those type of helmets, and what we are addressing is helmets that we call Type 2. Little bit harder shell, outside shell, but also it has an EPS foam, and it's a little bit more expensive, somewhere between 50 to 100 euros. And there, of course, the financials of Mips works also great. A lot of people talk to us and say that, why are you going into industrial helmets? You don't make a difference, because the most common accident is actually that you get a brick in your head. Of course, we are based on science. We always try or truthful to science. And what we do always is that we start looking at the injury statistics. The brick scenario does happen, but it's not that common. Mostly when you work at industrial site or a construction site, the most common accidents is that you trip, you slip, you fall. And that, of course, you introduce some kind of tangential force. And of course, that's when we can make a difference. So indeed, there is a very important factor to have a good helmet also in the construction site. And also, if you look at the injury statistics, when you look at the more severe injuries, then of course also brain injuries is even more represented. So interesting category. Important to know that we're just dipping our toes and just starting in that category. If we then look at our operating model, we have a very scalable business model, and that's also one of the reasons why we can achieve quite a high EBIT margin. So first of all, when it comes to cost of goods sold, we do not own any own production facilities. We produce today at 40 different manufacturing units around the world. Main part of those are concentrated in China. The key reason for that is, first of all, we want to have access to the latest technology, but also we want to be flexible and also don't sit in endless capex discussions about managing capacity, because you have to remember that we are a fast growing company. Selling expenses, we do operate as an ingredient brand, so we can reach a relatively big amount of customers with a small sales force. Our customers pays for end consumer marketing. We do marketing, but our marketing is very much focused on educating the industry. We do that with a couple of different tools. So first of all, we do a lot of PR activities. We also try to educate people in store. So how can you make sure that they understand on how they can sell Mips in the right way, and explain why the best reason is to pay a little bit more for a safer helmet. And then also the last one, which is also increasingly important, that is also how we are presented online. So that's what we focus on. When it comes to research and development, important, we are an IP company. We are based on science, so of course we put a lot of money there, around 5 to 7% per year. And that is to be able to offer relevant solutions for the relevant category, but also to be able to address a lot of different price points. So our focus on our R&D work is to really broaden our product portfolio. And then when it comes to the last one, general and admin, we have done all the investments, both in ERP system, in management and so on, and that's where the real scalability comes. And that's also one of the reasons of having a very scalable business model. When the growth comes, you do see a very attractive EBIT margin. If you look at last year, we delivered 41.2%, so indeed high profitability. When it comes to the other side, which is the balance sheet, we do not hold any finished goods inventory. We only manufacture at production. We do always invoice directly when we have produced. So directly when we produce, there goes an invoice from Sweden with a license fee to use our technology, to use our brand, and also the right to use our brands. And at the same time in China, there also goes out an invoice for all the components in order to manufacture and assemble the Mips low friction layer. And then when it comes to outsourced production, of course, we don't need to spend anything in manufacturing facilities. We do invest in test lab. Of course, we want to have a state-of-the-art test lab, and we also increase quite a lot in our patents. When it comes to our financial targets 2025, first of all, we want to become a 1 billion company. So if you compare against 2019, that means that we need to grow with an average of 24% per year. Last year we grew 39%, so quite a good business momentum. To maintain an EBIT margin of 40%, if you look at 2019, we had 41.2%. And then also when it comes to our dividend policy, we have a dividend policy of distributing 50% of our net earnings back to the shareholders. If you look at for the financial year of 2018, we did pay back 112% of the net earnings, and if you look at 2019, we did pay out 92%, so we are slowly growing into that model. If we then look at the key highlights of Q1 2020, very challenging quarter for us because of course we have production in China. That's where it all started, but still I think we had a very stable and solid quarter. We did deliver 25% sales growth, 16% organic growth. We have a very high inflow of project, quite a lot of activity. We have done more than 30,000 tests, more than anyone in the world. We did have 2 new brands coming on board, Dainese and K2, which is in the winter sport segment. We did move to a new office, and the reason why we did that is because we need more capacity, especially in the safety area. We have finalized the key recruitments, and if you also read our press release today, we also hired a new CFO that will start in September. And despite the very challenging situation, we don't see any reason to change our long-term ambition to 2025. If you then look at what is happening on the market, so of course, this is a little bit a two-folded discussion because like we said, we have production in China. All our manufacturing units are fully up and running. It took them about a month to get back to full capacity, but we don't have any capacity shortage as such. Then, of course, we have also communicated that the sales development coming quarters is fully dependent on the lockdown situation. Most of our markets have been locked down for almost 2 months. Our big market, just to reiterate, is US and Europe. Now they are coming back, of course. There is 2 sides of the coin. One is that when it comes to winter sport, we did see quite an abrupt finish of the season. Winter sports helmets are produced in Q1 and Q2. That's why we warn for a volatile quarter. Then on the flip side, of course, we do see quite a significant increase of demand when it comes to bicycle helmets. Do remember that those are produced in Q3 and Q4. Long term, of course, we see a very positive trend. When a lot of people ask us, will it stick? And I don't think anyone can really know that. I think the most important thing is that when we look at the last time something similar happened was 9/11. There was a lot of new bicycles riders because people didn't want to commute by public transportation and so on. That didn't stick, so after a couple of weeks they went back again and used public transportation. If you look at this issue, it seems to be first of all more long term. And then we also saw in the beginning quite cheap bicycle helmets that were sold, but now it has really turned around. We also see some structural changes on the market, that pedestrian and bicycle paths are being built. They do change a lot of roads to also include bicycle paths, of course. So there is a little bit more a structural change than last time. So we believe overall that there is a very positive long-term trend when it comes to bicycling and so on. And of course, we are ready to deliver on that. When we look at the balance sheet and cash flow, we did have in Q1 quite a good cash flow delivery, almost managed to double our operating cash flow. We did have an inflow of 52 million because we had a conversion of our warrant program where all the participants had to pay in money. Our cash and cash equivalents at the end of Q1 was 250 million or 255 million. We don't hold any loans. We have a solid equity ratio of 85%, and we did actually pay out a dividend of 3 SEK per share also for the financial year in 2019. So we open up for questions.
Presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just wondering about, I mean, the targets you have for 2025. I mean, they're quite ambitious.
Yeah.
But what would you say are the sort of main challenges in reaching those targets? Is it the margin? Is it the volume?
No, I mean, when we put through our plan, it's very much based on growing with the customers we already have. So the main pillar of the plan is to grow in the sports category. There we have all the key brands, so there it's very much a penetration game. How do we penetrate their whole assortment? The ones that are following us have seen in the last months that there is more big brands that saying that we will have nothing but Mips in our portfolio, and that's what the penetration game is. If that stops, then of course there is a risk to the plan. We have relatively good visibility because of course lead time of project can be up to 18 to 24 months. So we know roughly what is going to happen. And then of course with key brands, we are working with 3-year plans on how the penetration will look across their assortment. Motorcycle, little bit different animal when it comes to motocross. Same traction as in sports, same market position. Traditional street motorcycle, there we still have a job to do. We are helped by standards of being put in place that also address rotation and motion, and of course there we play a very important role. And like I say, safety is a smaller part of the plan. I would say that's probably where you have the biggest risk when it comes to market, but it's also the smallest part of the plan. Very big market, but of course we have just started. We had one brand that we launched with last year. Then of course we have discussion with more brands. You will not see big volumes during this year. It will start picking up in Q4, and then you see a volume acceleration in 2021.
But also, I mean, safety, as in, because I looked back, I mean, a couple of years back, the total focus market you had was very much smaller than what you have now. So, I mean, it seems like you sort of, during time, you sort of discover new areas where you can enter.
Yeah, we do that actually every day. There is always someone, have you thought about these helmets and so on. So there is a lot of new helmets. The reason why it was smaller is that we focused mainly on the military market, which is a very interesting market, but it's also a very long buying process. The speed from development to decision until you actually in the helmet can be anything from 5 to 8 years, and of course we have to respect that. Interesting for us, but it's something when it comes, and it's not one of our bigger bets, so to say.
And competition-wise, I mean, you have mentioned, I mean, consumer awareness is a big thing. And as awareness grows, it benefits you, but I guess it also benefits competition to some extent. So more supply, more demand, more supply. So what is the sort of, where are you there?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when we talk about competition internally, we have 4% of our addressable markets. I focus on the 96% that don't have Mips. That's where my focus is. The quicker I can convert them, the better it is. Then if you take the total amount of competition, it's somewhere around 10% of our sales. Being market leader, being substantially bigger, I can't really focus on them. Are we always careful? We always watch out that there is no one that innovate and manage to innovate a superior technology to ours that can address all the different price points, because it's one thing to launch a technology, but you also need to be assembled in a factory. We are using 40 different factories, and of course you need to have an operation for that. The biggest competitor there that we have today, they have one customer. We have a little bit more than 100. So it's not that I'm arrogant. We always have a good overview and a watch on our competitor, but that's not really where the focus is, as long as they don't trigger the two things I said. superior technology. We don't know about that technology today. Might there come a competitor? I believe so. There is a huge market. I think there must be someone trying to copy what we do. And then I think the other thing is also to be able to address all the different price points, because without that, it's very difficult to go to a brand and say, I can do only your premium helmets. Of course, you want to address the whole assortment, so to say.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.